Hello, my name's Dr Alison Hardy and thanks very much for signing up for the Writing Meeting project. In this presentation I'm going to talk you through how the writing meeting process works and the next stages. So these are the 4 people involved in the project. So that's me in the top left hand corner. Professor Rowena Murray and Dr Morag Thau have been involved in the design of the programme, and I'm going to talk to you in a moment about the paper they wrote where you can find out some more information about the background to the writing meeting process. And then myself and Michelle have been involved in evaluating the process and seeing how it works for different academics at different stages in their careers. So why are we interested in this? We're really interested about the fact that how we can support academics, whether they're PGRs or early career researchers or academics who are established in their careers, to manage the pressure of academic writing, the expectations that we have to complete writing projects. There's different ways that we can do that. Some of you might have attended one of Rowena's writing retreats. You might also have created space to write with your peers where you meet maybe in the library, or you're now doing that online. And it's all been about creating a community of writers so you can sort of support each other as you go through the challenges of keeping and maintaining your good writing habits. And that's what this is about. It's about how do you create good habits of writing. Now, the whole writing meeting process is underpinned by a theory that's related to how do we change our behaviour. How do we create new habits? And that's what we're going to be exploring about the process to help us maintain and change our writing habits. So this is the paper I spoke about a moment ago by Rowena Murray and Morag Thau from 2014. In this paper, they talk about the framework that they've developed and why they've developed the framework. That it's built on the trans-theoretical model of behaviour change. And it very straightforwardly involves 2 people who are writing or who want to write, coming together and interviewing each other in turn, using a template to structure the conversations about their writing behaviour and plans to change. I tried this out with a colleague and we've had some great success with this. I finished my thesis and she wrote 12,000 words for hers. That's how it helped us over a period of time. So then we decided to tell others about it, and we've had other people involved in the project in the last few years, pairing up and then trying out how it works for them. And in the next few slides, I'm going to talk to you about how the process works and the template that we use to structure those meetings. There are 3 parts to this writing meeting. There's the process which you do following the template, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. There's allocating the time for the 2 of you to meet. And I'm going to suggest that in the first meeting that you have with your writing buddy, that you meet for 90 minutes. It takes a time in the first session because you're just becoming familiar with each other and learning about each other as writers. After that, the following meetings tend to be shorter, between 45 minutes and an hour. There's a template that I'm going to talk through that we use you to do that. And then also you have a writing buddy. And I will be emailing you shortly with details of who your writing buddy is if you've signed up for us to pair you up with somebody. There are 8 stages to the process. The first is exploring you to think about a state of change. Where are you in your writing? There's a decisional balance. Do you want to change? Do you want to write more? Do you want to maintain your habits? How do we feel about writing, the benefits and the drawbacks? What are the barriers and successes to our writing? What are we trying to write, our goals? How do we plan to meet those goals? And what are the specific actions that we're going to take? And how confident are we in achieving those goals? So those are the 8 stages of the process that are supported by the template. So here's the template. It's basically a 3-page document with some prompts for you to go through. So you can see here that these are the 8 different stages highlighted. I'm going to talk through each of those in detail, so we'll have a little bit more time to explore what happens at each of those stages. But first, I'm going to ask you to pause the video, go to the web address that's on the screen at the moment, download the document that's there, and then you will have a copy of the template for yourself to use. So download it, save it to your computer, have a look at it, and then come back and watch the rest of the video. So you should have a copy of this now in front of you. So these are the 3 pages, they're the blank pages, and I'm going to talk through in a moment how you fill those in and how it works. But let's start by looking at the top of the first page. So it's really important that you write down when you meet. Now there's 2 of you, and you're going to, each of you during this meeting, take on these different roles. So in the first part of the meeting, one of you takes on the role of the writer and the other becomes the prompter. And the prompter fills out these pages, or the first 2 pages, for the writer. And the prompter uses the first 2 pages to prompt the writer to think about their writing. Okay? And the aim is, as it says here, is to prompt reflection on writing by the prompter asking the writer these questions. The prompter fills in the steps 1 to 4 for the writer, and the writer fills in step 5. I'm going to go through this in a little bit more detail, so don't worry about kind of trying to capture this all in one go. Let's think about the buddy and how that works. So, in our former lives, when we were able to meet face to face, we would have done it in the way that these 2 are shown in the photograph. But it works equally well online. Make sure it's quiet where you are. Think about how you sit. This is about you being open to the questions that have been asked of you as a writer. And also when you take on the role of the prompter, think about how you sit, that you can reflect ideas back to the other person. Keeping good eye contact is important, and showing that you are listening. You're going to reflect and paraphrase when you are the prompter back to the writer, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how that works. And it's about having an honest and open discussion about writing and how we feel about our writing and our goals and how we might achieve them. So, you're in your pairs, one of you's taken on the role of the prompter, one of you's taken on the role of the writer. I'm going to show you some screenshots here of some different templates that I've filled out with my writing buddy, Kath. So the first question is about which of these sounds most like you. There's 4 there to fill out. You can see that I actually changed my mind as we were talking about this. I've been writing, but only recently was how I felt at the stage when I filled this in. Then the next stage is, Kath would ask me, how important is it for me to change right now? And at that point when we filled this in, it was really important. What are the benefits and drawbacks of writing? And this is a really important stage when we're thinking about wanting to change our habits. So we've talked about how important it is to change, but these are the reasons why we want to change in terms of what are the benefits to us changing or benefits to us writing. So you can see that I've articulated about it becoming part of an academic community. And then what are the drawbacks? What's the problem if I stop writing or don't write? Now these will change for you. These are just my examples. So please don't think these are the right answers on these pages that you're going to see now. I'm just sharing this with you so you can see this is how it's filled in. And then we start to think about, and I'm prompted to think about, what are the barriers to my writing? And that first one, I'm sure many of us might agree with about, I feel like I'm no good at it. And then the prompter then says to me, so how are you going to overcome that? How are you going to change the way you feel about not feeling very good about it? Now, there's nothing written on this sheet in answer to that. So it's about the prompter is writing your responses, the writer's responses. So obviously in this conversation, I didn't write anything else. I didn't respond to anything else. But that's fine. This is about what the writer is saying. So the prompter takes a really important role when they ask the question, do you anticipate any barriers to your writing? The writer gives some reasons, and then the prompter says, so let me just check that I've got this right, and reflects back to the writer what they've said. And the same with how will you overcome them? So you've said these are your barriers, how will you overcome them? Okay, and I'm capturing those as they're written down. So the words that are written here are the words of the writer, not the interpretation of the prompter. That's really important. And also, it's really important that you think about as a prompter that you are not there to fix the writer's problems or their barriers or suggest different ways forward. This is about you as the prompter asking the questions of the writer to help them think about what they can do to change their way they're approaching these barriers. So once we've identified what the barriers are and how we might address them, we then think about the goal setting. Now, if you've attended any of Rowena's writing retreats or read Rowena's books about academic writing or any other good practice about changing our behaviour or wanting to move things forward, we set a goal. And so you can see there's quite a big goal here. This is the long-term goal about writing a paper. But then thinking about the realistic short-term sub-goals for that. Okay, and these are the next realistic goals, not all of the goals to achieve that long-term goal, but the next ones. And so there's 2 here that I've written, or that I've said to the prompter that the prompter's written for me, that I'm going to write 1,500 words for my literature review and 500 words the draft section of my methodology section. Now, we might argue, are those specific enough? It is about being precise. Okay, and about being clear about what those sub-goals are and that they are realistic. In other words, that they are achievable between the meeting you're currently having and when you will next meet. So you might, at this point in the conversation, we start to think, well, we're going to meet in 2 weeks. Let's get a date in our diaries. And then we can start thinking about what's realistic. And once we have those goals, we now start to think about how might we avoid those barriers to us meeting those sub-goals. All right, so what's coming up? What's going to happen between now and when we next meet that might stop you as the writer meeting those goals? And those are things that were captured in that moment about marking, other documents to complete, working on other projects, other people, being really precise. So what can you do to avoid that, the prompter would ask? What can you do to avoid or minimise the way that marking might take over? So again, the prompt is written down, the response was, I can get that done today. And I'm going to allocate in the next 2 weeks 2 writing days. Actually, I can do that in my diary, and so on. So that becomes really specific about what are the actions we can take to avoid meeting those sub-goals between now and when we next meet. So this is on page 3, the action plan. So page 3 is completed by the writer, not by the prompter. So this is where the writer takes ownership of those sub-goals and how they're going to do it. They write a clear action plan. Okay, so we've got the sub-goals. Now the actions here do not relate to the sub-goals that you've seen on the previous pages. I've taken different examples from different meetings myself and Kath had. So don't kind of look back and go, oh, that doesn't tally up. That's why this is a different meeting. But we've also been very precise about what we're going to do, where we're going to do it. And often in the meeting I have with Kath, we get our diaries out at this point and we actually block it out and we put it in there and we make it really clear. Or sometimes we'll pin this above our desk. Each of us take different approaches, that we have that action plan with us. And finally, as the writer, you then say, okay, how confident am I that I'm going to meet those goals by the next meeting? And I'll give you a little bit of a heads up here. If you're circling around at about 3 and 4, then I think that's a prompt to go back and have a look back at those goals and those sub-goals and the action plan and some of the things that you're going to do to address and minimise the risks. And we also write down here when we're next going to meet. So that's the writing meeting process using the template. So as I said, there's 3 parts of this writing meeting. The template, which I've talked about, finding the time to meet and having your buddy. And the buddy is a really important part of that process. The person you're paired up with, that relationship you develop, is really important. And what they help you do is that relationship helps you develop an awareness of your competence as a writer and in achieving goals. That you develop a relatedness to each other because you're talking about your writing. That you start to become more autonomous in what you're doing and making choices for yourself about your writing, about what you're going to do. And if you're interested in this, this is underpinned by the idea and the theory of self-determination theory that you might want to have a look at that. That gives a really useful insight about how these 3 parts work together and then how these 3 elements of the relationship with the buddy sort of supports all of that habit change. So let's just recap about the relationship. It needs to be mutually beneficial. Okay, so you're working together, not one of you fixing the other, but you are reflecting and working together. That's where the mirror is important. Without ego involvement, so there shouldn't be comments like, well, I don't have a problem with that, or I've done this. This is about the writer. So the prompter is a mirror to the writer. The prompter is not a solver for the writer or saying, this is how I've done it you might find that useful, okay? This is very much about the prompts are helping the writer think about them and their actions and what they do. So these are the next steps. We're going to send out a pre-meeting survey for you to complete. So before your first meeting with your buddy, we ask you to do the survey. That you will be paired with a buddy via email. So that will come out week beginning the 10th of August. I suggest you read Murray and Thau's paper and that you meet up 4 times between mid-August and the end of September. It's quite a quick turnaround, so we ask you to keep the momentum going. And then we will be sending you a post-meeting survey late September, early October for you to fill out. And I really suggest that you do go for this and have a real good go. Here's some reasons why, from the people that I've done this with in the past, the different things that they've found that the writing meeting process has helped them with. I think all of that speaks for itself in terms of how beneficial this could be. That it's not just about your writing either, it's about taking it beyond and developing new friendships and support networks. So thanks for listening and taking part. There's the details of the paper that you can access. I'll also include that in the emails that we send out so you can find out that information as well if you don't take the link down now. And then finally, if you want to keep in touch with us, 3 of us are on Twitter and you can kind of say hello and be good to hear from you. Thanks for listening.